CRWS, Countering Racism White Supremacy Book Club. Like, share, subscribe, and comment below.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am truly humbled by the extraordinary honor of this nomination, and I am especially grateful for the care that you have taken in discharging your constitutional duty in service of our democracy with all that is going on in the world today. I also offer my sincerest thanks to you as well, Madam Vice President, for your invaluable role in this nomination process. I must begin these very brief remarks by thanking God for delivering me to this point in my professional journey. My life has been blessed beyond measure, and I do know that one can only come this far by faith. Among my many blessings, and indeed the very first, is the fact that I was born in this great country. The United States of America is the greatest beacon of hope and democracy the world has ever known. I was also blessed from my early days to have had a supportive and loving family. My mother and father, who have been married for 54 years, are at their home in Florida right now, and I know that they could not be more proud. It was my father who started me on this path when I was a child, as the President mentioned. My father made the fateful decision to transition from his job as a public high school history teacher and go to law school. Some of my earliest memories are of him sitting at the kitchen table, reading his law books. I watched him study, and he became my first professional role model. My mother, who was also a public high school teacher, provided invaluable support in those early days, working full-time to enable my father's career transition while also guiding and inspiring 4-year-old me. My only sibling, my brother Kitaj, came along half a decade later, and I'm so proud of all that he's accomplished. After graduating from Howard University, he became a police officer and a detective on some of the toughest streets in the inner city of Baltimore. After that, he enlisted in the Army, serving 2 tours of duty in the Middle East. I believe that he was following the example set by my uncles who are in law enforcement. You may have read that I have one uncle who got caught up in the drug trade and received a life sentence. That is true. But law enforcement also runs in my family. In addition to my brother, I had 2 uncles who served decades as police officers, one of whom became the police chief in my hometown of Miami, Florida. I am standing here today by the grace of God as testament to the love and support that I've received from my family. I have also been blessed with many dear friends, colleagues, mentors, law clerks. I could not possibly name all of the people to whom I owe great thanks. But I must mention specifically the 3 brilliant jurists for whom I had the privilege of serving as a law clerk at the outset of my legal career. U.S. District Judge Patty Saris in Massachusetts, U.S. Court of Appeals Judge Bruce Selya in Rhode Island, and last but certainly not least, Associate Justice Stephen Breyer of the Supreme Court of the United States. Justice Breyer, in particular, not only gave me the greatest job that any young lawyer could ever hope to have, but he also exemplified every day in every way that a Supreme Court justice can perform at the highest level of skill and integrity while also being guided by civility, grace, pragmatism, and generosity of spirit. Justice Breyer, the members of the Senate will decide if I fill your seat, but please know that I could never fill your shoes. To my dear family, those who are here with me now and those who are watching from home, I am forever indebted to you for your love and support. To my beloved husband, Patrick, thank you for being my rock today and every day for these past 26 years. I love you. To my daughters, Talia and Layla, you are the light of my life. Please know that whatever title I may hold or whatever job I may have, I will still be your mom. That will never change. There are so many other people I would love to be able to address and to thank, but time is short, so let me end by sharing an interesting coincidence that has actually meant a great deal to me over the years. As it happens, I share a birthday with the first Black woman ever to be appointed as a federal judge, the Honorable Constance Baker Motley. We were born exactly 49 years to the day apart. Today, I proudly stand on Judge Motley's shoulders, sharing not only her birthday, but also her steadfast and courageous commitment to equal justice under law. Judge Motley's life and career has been a true inspiration to me as I have pursued this professional path. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed as the next Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, I can only hope that my life and career, my love of this country and the Constitution, and my commitment to upholding the rule of law and the sacred principles upon which this great nation was founded will inspire future generations of Americans. Thank you again, Mr. President, for this extraordinary honor.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the CRWS study on Race Code War, the power of words, images, and symbols on the Black psyche by Kyrie and Harrow. We are covering some beginning portions of Chapter 5, Racial Symbols. And Mr. Smoky Damages will be getting us started off with a bit of his notes today. Smoky Damages, are you there?
Okay, so I just had little problems here, some little technical problems. Yeah, greetings everyone on CRWS. In view of what we just heard there, it was interesting, just took down a couple of notes. Equal justice under law was mentioned just there. Do black people experience that, equal justice under law? I mean, we don't have justice on this planet, I don't think. And also, she also mentioned sacred principles under which this nation was founded. That is really interesting. So in terms of symbolism under what we just heard, chapter 5 that we're going to be covering today, or parts of chapter 5 that we're going to be covering today, is racial symbols. Racial symbols. And Kari and Haro has done a great job on this chapter, if I may say so. And some of the first chapter reads like this. A racial symbol is any material thing, visual object, or an individual place and event, or an individual place and event that are used to deceive and maintain the domination of a targeted racial population. A racist will use symbols to trigger thought, speech, or action that has a racial objective. For example, Black elected officials are often used as racial symbols of progress. This is magnified even more when it is the first time a Black individual has been elected. Very, very telling as to what we just saw. Yeah, elected, selected, or appointed to a certain political position. This kind of representation is known as the first Negro syndrome, which is racial symbolism at its best. And it puts me in mind a little bit of the I think it was Harriet Tubman, who they suggested a little while ago. It's going to be on some sort of currency, etc. This would be an example of symbolism, right? And Kari and Ahura goes on to say this: the racial symbolism that is portrayed as a racial gain is in many cases, after careful scrutiny, nothing more than part of a racial shell game. Racial symbolism doesn't change the material living conditions and the dependency state of the effective majority of Black people. What it does change is the material living conditions of the individual who is used as a symbol. Racial symbolism must not be used as a substitute for racial justice. And I thought that was very, very profound the way he put it there. I'm just going to skip down here. The first Negro syndrome becomes nothing more than a celebration of 300 years of evil by using racial symbols and racial propaganda to cover it up. The symbols cannot change the reality of the continued evils of inferior housing, education, and economic underdevelopment. The use of racial symbols signifies a desire to continue to divert attention away from the real issue. And I thought that was really, really profound the way he put that there. Yeah, anyone else? I've got some other stuff to read as well. I am actually going to read a portion from the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, but anyone in the meantime can share some comments.
Thank you for that. First, I wanted to share, based on that video, thank you, O5, for that video. With this image right here, I see a double whammy. You know, I don't know if anybody else can see it, but first we have the supposed alleged first Black female nominee to the Supreme Court, and standing right next to the first Black female vice president, so-called Black female vice president. Still unsure if she is Black, but she's definitely non-white. So double whammy right there, sending all kinds of racial symbolism, racial messages with that. She even thanked her in the beginning of the video. So, you know, I think she's definitely carrying out the what racist man, racist woman would like her to do. I also thought it was very interesting how, you know, she mentioned the people who've helped her in her life. She mentioned her drug dealing uncle. I don't know. I don't really know the relevance of that, but I know that, you know, somebody like Uncle Joe standing over there goes to great lengths to cover up, you know, his son's dealings with drugs. So for a Black person to come out and just say it, you know, I think there's something there. And then she also went ahead and thanked 3 white people specifically for giving her the position. I also thought that was very interesting. These 3 white judges. And also talking about how blessed she felt, and, you know, all the things that, you know, go into being a Black person, a so-called Black person. You know, you don't get anywhere through credibility, through your hard work. You get there through faith and a helping hand from racist man, racist woman. And then lastly, she ended by saying that she had the same birthday as the first Black female judge. I think that is also another indication of racial progress, racial symbolism, you know, trying to connect her with the first Black female judge in America. I don't know how long ago that was. I think that would have also been interesting to know, but maybe I'll look it up myself. That's what I have so far on this section. Thank you.
Thank you. And you as well, Smoking Diamond. Just this first page, it's just so right on time for what we're seeing in 2022. And pages 235 and through 250 were very, very telling on what's happening. And I think Kari and Harold did an excellent job at really giving us excellent examples of what racism and white supremacy is and how does it work. And we're seeing that in real time with this clip. I'm just going to read a little bit from 235. He says, if racial domination were being dismantled, there would be no need to use symbols or use glorification ceremonies such as the first Negro syndrome. If racism were truly being disassembled, the correct response to the advancement of a Black individual would be, we are truly ashamed that it took so long for this event to occur. We are sad that, let me see. We are truly ashamed that it took so long for this event to occur. We are sad that because of our racial discrimination and injustice, we have caused your people so much harm and developmental delay. This is the only beginning, and we will work harder every day to correct all of the racial problems that we have created. Now, while I wouldn't exactly want to hear that from any suspected racist, it would be much better than just this glorification ceremony. And she called it a coincidence that it's her first like that she has the same birthday as the first federal judge, and her being the first Supreme Court justice to be nominated. She called it a coincidence, but this is planned and this is designed. Racist men and racist women have allowed her and placed her in this position. This is a excellent example of what Kai Rayner would call a glorification ceremony, because a lot of non-white people who are confused, like myself and like Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, they will see her, well, not myself, I'm not that confused, but victims like myself, they will see her and they will be like, oh wow, we are making so-called progress. We are doing good, you know. But I suspect she was given this position because she also, like Miss Kamala Harris, has a white husband. And if a person has studied Neely Fuller's code book, they will understand just the damage. And also, if anyone has read Miss Tate's Pieces of a Puzzle, they will understand that just the damage and how white people who are having sex with non-white people, they will use those non-white people for their aims, and other non-white, and other white people will also use them, place them in these positions like we see here. I don't know if she would be here if she had a Black male attempted husband, Black male attempted spouse, but really, really interesting. And so many racial symbols were uttered because as we are confused victims, we will use the words we are taught, and we are taught words that support and maintain the system of white supremacy. She called one of her offsprings the delight of her life, you know, calling it its faith, believing in God, which I suspect her concept of God is also given to her by a racist man and racist woman. So a lot of racial symbols, just in their words. And I appreciate you noticing a double whammy, Kwaku, because I did not notice. I forgot about Kamala Harris. You know, her also being a victim of racism who has a white man sexually assaulting her while pretending it's a marriage or whatever. So really, really tragic, but really in your faces, which is why hopefully more motivation for us to work to eliminate the race problem. And I'll go ahead.
Yeah, also, I think it's really fitting to read what Neely Fuller Jr. says about this same racial symbolism that we're talking about right now, racial symbols. Neely Fuller has a chapter here called Racial Showcasing Confusion. And I think it's quite relevant to read a little portion of what Neely Fuller Jr. has to say about racial showcasing confusion. It is from the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, which you can get by going to producejustice.com. So anyway, racial showcasing confusion. This applies to the white supremacists taking large numbers of non-white people and putting them out front, in inverted commas. The white supremacists sometimes carefully select and give great amounts of money and or publicity to large but carefully controlled numbers of non-white people. The white supremacists sometimes present or showcase the chosen non-white person as being extremely wealthy, extremely comfortable, and or mostly and falsely extremely powerful. because this elected official right now obviously probably is not extremely powerful, is definitely not extremely powerful. You know, the white supremacists are allowing her to be in that position so she could say things like she said earlier in the video that 05 played, sacred, she did say the sacred principles under which this nation was founded, which is troubling. Anyway, Neely Fuller goes on to say, the white supremacists showcase these selected non-white people as being totally successful in not being victimized by and or not being subject to the system of racism, white supremacy. The purpose of this is so that if any non-white person starts talking about racism in the future, they'll be laughed at because it may appear that white supremacy has been put out of business. However, white supremacy is a world business, and like any other business, it works according to the logic of profits and losses, which means percentages. When one goes into business, one expects some loss. The white supremacists know that the cost of doing business of white supremacy can increase or decrease. Racially showcasing carefully selected non-white people is one of the major ways that the white supremacists help themselves to maintain, expand, and or refine the system of racism, white supremacy. The white supremacists practiced racial showcasing confusion among non-white people by sometimes placing great numbers of non-white people in so-called prominent positions for the purpose of producing the illusion that racism, white supremacy, if it continues to exist, certainly doesn't exist enough to complain about. And one last part here. It's important to know and to understand that the white supremacists have the intention of causing envy, hostility, and or conflict between the non-white people that they have showcased with many benefits and the large number of non-white people that they have forced to have almost nothing of constructive value. And I thought that was very pertinent for this chapter. Go to producejustice.com and get a copy of Neely Fuller Jr.'s book, definitely.
Just to add very quickly, this is always interesting when we have someone like receiving an award or a new position to reference someone to be, oh, well, I'm great. I'm happy to follow the first Black blah, 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 or the first this. It's like she almost had to mention that to make her case or to make it seem like, oh, someone else did it, so we can do it too, or I can do it too. I just thought that was very interesting. And I just wonder, like, if I want to go back and look at other people accepting an award or any type of position, if they are intentionally just going to say like, oh, the first blah, blah, blah helped me get here, or whatever it is, to create that illusion, and for them to almost do the white man or the racist woman, racist man's job. And they don't even have to say it. It's like, okay, we'll award you this little trinket just to show the world like, hey, we're not racist, or hey, we allow you here in these positions too. But as mentioned before by some of you, who their spouses are and how they operate in the system, like obviously they still are a victim of racism, white supremacy. They are still going to do the job of racist woman, racist man because of the position that they're in, or just where they want to be in life, and not really addressing or looking into racism, white supremacy, or at least stating it.
Yeah, that's so interesting as well. And even with so-called Black History Month that we have, they've trained us now that when we have these so-called Black History Month, we're even trained to parrot the same type of racial symbolism, racial symbols. And as Kari and Aharo says, this kind of representation is known as the first Negro syndrome, which is racial symbolism at its best. And I just couldn't have put that any better. I like the way he's phrased that there, because in so-called Black History Month, what do a lot of us do? A lot of us do exactly what the white supremacists have trained us to do. We say, this Black person here was the first person to do this, and this Black person was the first person to do that. And it doesn't make any kind of difference, because we're still subject to the system of racism and white supremacy. It's nonsense when you really think about it. Why are we celebrating whilst we're behind the camp wire? We're celebrating whilst we're, on a battlefield. And like he says on this chat, like he says on this in the second chapter, the racial symbolism that is portrayed as a racial gain is in many cases, after careful scrutiny, nothing more than part of a racial shell game. Racial symbolism doesn't change the material living conditions and the dependency state of the effective majority of Black people. And I think that's so telling.
Well, I have one more thing to add. You just reminded me. I was in a first grader classroom, and they had this book that was created from the teacher, or probably off some website that she just printed it out and stapled it together. But I believe it was called The ABCs of African American History. Kwaku, if you remember the picture I sent you, I can't remember. But throughout the book, it had A for I think it has something with Abraham Lincoln in there, and then it continues on, and it has Oprah Winfrey, who's like, they said the first billionaire, and it just like kind of, and then it had different people in there that said, oh, create the first light bulb and the first car engine and all these things. This is very interesting that they had this book. There was a whole stack, a whole like 2 stacks. So I was like, okay, they're probably teaching the students this, and they're gonna go through it the whole February and say how like Black people did all these things, and in the classroom there's no racism and all kinds of stuff. So it's weird how you mentioned the first, or we're talking about how, the first Negro syndrome, and how it's really being indoctrinating, our children are being indoctrinated like with this too in first grade. So yeah.
Wow, thank you everyone. Yeah, this what Kyrie and Harold calls first Negro syndrome and what Neely Hoover Jr. calls racial showcasing is it's a very refined tactic that racist men and racist women use globally. And Akanfu said something really interesting in the chat that puts that well, at least in the Kyrie and Harold sense, the first Negro syndrome. He says here, in the Vietnam War, a lot of Black soldiers were decimated due to being the point man, one who was placed in front of the white soldiers to take fire. I was like, wow, that's a different take on the first Negro, but I just wanted to, I have to reiterate, because we see this Black female and given such a title that we are led to believe is esteemed and is powerful and has value. And then, but this is just victim here. She reminds me of what Amos and Wilson talks about, like victims who spend a lot of time getting really educated, but are still confused about the system we are living in. Because she says it's by a weird coincidence that she got the position, and she happens to have the same birthday as the first federal judge. I think this is actually some sort of ritual going, like some sort of racist or core ritual that white people do, because this is really this is in our faces. This is not random that she has the same birthday, nor that she was nominated. She has value that white people have deemed, yeah, we could use her, we could put her in front of some non-white people, and she can help the system expand and refine itself. So really tragic. And often many of us who are so-called very intelligent, we will just utter things like, light of our light, dark day, just having faith in Christ. It's just nonsense that we've been taught, So I just hope that is noticed and observed by other people, and I hope it computes.
Yeah, it's really interesting that a lot of white supremacists usually they they basically promote non-white people into these types of positions, so the non-white people can say the kind of things that they'll probably be more ridiculed for. So it sounds better, and it sounds more, it's a more refined way of racist man and racist woman practicing racism, white supremacy. So in this age where you have a great number of non-white, or even, well, actually a small number of non-white people and white people, you know, tearing down statues of people who were slave masters, people who were celebrated, etc. But then they put the they put the non-white person, they elevate her into this position to say something, like I said, like the sacred principles under which this nation was founded. And then when you think of people who found, you know, people like what, Thomas Jefferson raping Sally Hemings, is that an example of one of the great ways that the nation was founded? It's when you really think about it, white supremacists are just saying stuff through many non-white people that you know, that they don't have to say themselves in prominent, certainly in prominent positions. Very deadly and refined form of practicing racism, white supremacy. But it's important, like Neely Fuller Jr. says, that no matter how, he says as well, no matter how many millions of non-white people who are chosen by the white supremacists to receive fame and fortune for racial showcasing, do not be tempted to blame any non-white person for any non-just harm that is done to anyone, white or non-white, as the dominant cause. Always blame the white supremacists. And that's important to remember, because this is exactly why they do it. They do it so that we can squabble among ourselves and point to the non-white person and say, look, I didn't get any goodies because of this non-white person. They do it with President Obama. They put him there so that non-white people could blame him when we didn't get anything. Right? They did it exactly for that reason, right? We have a global system of racism, white supremacy, and the white supremacists are the ones who are to blame.
Precisely. Thank you, Smokey Damages. And he explores a lot more racist symbols. I'm going to read from page 236, where he says, in a racist mind, many things can be used as racist symbols. Large animals such as black horses have often been used as racial symbols, and they use subtly linked with images of black males. Black professional football players are called beasts and studs. Black professional prize fighters are labeled as stablemates. Both are code words for the animalization of black males. Horses are also used as color-coded symbols. The shiny black appearance has often been compared to the oily dark skin of black people. Dark-colored raisins were transformed in 1987 into soul singers that sung popular Motown recordings such as "Heard It Through the Grapevine." So as I just watched and observe and become more and more less confused about what I'm dealing with, I'm able to see these racist symbols everywhere. And there's times he's lists a many here and many here. There are others that are not here. So he says, I'm just gonna give some example. He says white knight, and I don't know what dark knight is here, but dark knight should be here. White ball, black hat, black garbage cans, and black garbage bags. And there's a ton of others, but I said the last two because we're actually going to be talking about that a little bit later. Do we have any more anything to say about the racial symbols before we get to the section of subtitled "Those Big Black Ugly Things"?
Yeah, I do. Give me 1 second. I lost my page. There's just one thing I wanted to point out. specifically the word white pearl. So I was watching the State of the Union, and I had read this, you know, like a couple weeks ago. So when I was watching the State of the Union, I noticed, you know, there were two females sitting behind Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris. And I noticed Nancy Pelosi was wearing pearls, but Kamala Harris wasn't. This could be a reach, but it's just something that I noticed. And in this video, I see that both of them are wearing pearls, even though Kamala Harris, her pearls are black. But it'd be very interesting. I wonder if when white females are wearing pearls, non-white females aren't allowed to. If that's some kind of racial symbolism. But that's something that I noticed after reading this. I thought I'd share. It could be complete nonsense and unconstructive, but I thought I'd share.
I think that is very, very interesting. So I'm gonna play a little bit because it falls along with the coming up subtitle and also with the racial symbols, because racial symbols, they go hand in hand with the system of white supremacy. Racist men and racist women and racist child have done a phenomenal job at refining racist symbols and creating racist caricatures to the point where we are glorifying and celebrating victims who have been molded into racist caricatures, for lack of a better word. For example, I'm just gonna say victim of racism. Lil Wayne, you know, he is a from my observation, a victim of racism that white people have molded into be just a person, a victim who glorifies the system of racism and white supremacy and acts very white in a manner that is totally incorrect. And I say that to say that it all is connected, because when I listen to, and I don't listen anymore, but when I see like caricatures like, you know, Soulja Boy and Lil Wayne and Lil Uzi Vert, any non-white person who has been subjugated and victimized to such a degree where they are singing songs about mistreating and causing harm and not singing songs about solving problems. So whenever I see that, I'm just reminded of yeah, this is the tradition of white supremacy. They have a long track record of producing these images. They just have gotten so good at it that they don't really have to use stuff like this anymore, because they have conditioned us to act it out.
Lazy town, 1 hour stop for lunch.
Mammy, there ain't no way to wash clothes. What you all need is rhythm.
What do you all mean, rhythm?
I'll show you what I mean. In Harlem, there's a little place where everyone goes to see the way a washerwoman washes her clothes. If you like boogie woogie rhythm, she's gotta be.
All right, that's all we need to see just to understand and get insight into the racist mind and how they view non-white people and how they would like to see us. And notice and pay attention to the dancing as well, you know, just always portraying Black people with rhythm and dancing, but also notice how just, you know, how incorrectly, just how unpleasant the characters look. You know, these characters look very, very unpleasant, and that's because they're racist men and racist women worldwide. I suspect, and I could be very wrong, but I suspect racist men and racist women have molded their perception of people classified as Black worldwide. That a lot of people, non-white and white, see Black people, non-white people, probably incorrectly. You know, they may view us as those big Black ugly things. some of them may have been conditioned in that manner successfully, because that is how the system is designed. Black, get back. So I may be just utterly insane and just speaking nonsense, or I may be onto something. So moving forward, we're gonna get into this section, which I thoroughly appreciated, because it's very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Let me get the picture back up. So I'm just gonna read a little bit from 238. And a racist, so, and this is again from Those Big Black Ugly Things. And a racist social infrastructure, many items take on a racist meaning and purpose. The following story is an example of how an object that is designed for a special use becomes part of a racial code, talk, and the racist agenda. The case in particular is a story that happened around 1985 in the city of Columbus, Ohio. It is the strange story of a 360-gallon trash containers. The Columbus City Council and the mayor's office were embroiled in a political controversy over the implementation of a new trash collection system. At the core of the issue was the replacement of existing metal garbage cans with new and larger trash containers in the backyard. The city staff convened in several community meetings in both Black and white neighborhoods to hear concerns regarding the new system. Some residents and community organizations bitterly complained because they were upset about no longer being able to use the old-fashioned metal cans. The major issue was that large numbers of residents would have to take out the trash at night into the alley and put it in the new huge 360-gallon trash receptacle. Most of the complaints came from the white females who imagined all sorts of evil emanating from the large Black trash container. Many of these concerns had the ring of legitimacy and would not have garnered special attention except for the fact that they kept referring to the color of the 360-gallon trash containers. They made this a real issue. And this is the final paragraph I'm going to read. And this final paragraph is very, very telling as well. The color or size of the trash container did not surface as a major issue or concern in the meetings held in the Black community. The majority of the containers were Black in color, rotund in physical appearance, and close to 6 feet in height. In the dark of the night, some of the white females imitated that the containers resembled large dark beings. Many of the white respondents made constant reference to the size and, most importantly, to the color of those containers. To the color of the containers. They kept referring to the containers as those big, black, ugly things. So I thought this was excellent that he caught this debacle going on amongst white people, because it really gives us a insight of how just white people view, hey, not just non-white people classified as Black as, grotesque creatures, but hey, anything that's dark in color, they may have a issue with in some areas. At least this implies that just big trash cans cause so much controversy. And but I will pause there. I do have more to read in this section, but I'll see if folks wanna chime in.
Yeah, I was reading that bit, the story of that paragraph as well, and it's interesting that the Black, the majority, like they didn't have such a concern about the color of the containers in and amongst the Black residents, and that is very, very, very telling. Like, what was disturbing about the color of those containers, which obviously were more efficient than what they had before. And when you think about it, just dark things, Black things being associated with things that are negative, you just think, like I've said before, the opposite is usually true. I mean, if you speak to the average farmer, the best type of soil is going to be the darkest soil, right? The darkest, blackest soil contain the most nutrients. So that's interesting why they would just associate dark things with things that are bad, when usually dark things are associated with things that are pretty good. You know, like the darker apples are the most healthy. Black quinoa, we got white quinoa, red quinoa, and you've got black quinoa as well. The black quinoa turns out to be the most healthy. You got dark sprouting, purple sprouting broccoli, which is the black broccoli, and you got the green broccoli, and you've got the white albino one, which is the cauliflower. And surprise, surprise again, the dark broccoli is the one that's most healthy. So the opposite is true, but in their psyche they just symbolize everything as black as being really, really negative and horrible. And it's also telling as well, like in terms of when Karia and Nahara was talking about like black cats as well on the previous page, when you think white people have always associated black cats with bad luck. Alternatively, in what would be commonly referred to as black civilizations, they used to revere black cats, right? So it's just interesting. So when you come from a place where everywhere you can see around you is black, then you don't have such quote unquote hang-ups on color. It's just it's really strange, definitely telling.
Yeah, and just one thing too, as I was reading this section, I never really thought about the black trash can. I was like, what? But also with them having this conversation of, are there concerns about the trash can being black? I just wonder if they had that same conversation when the neighborhood watch sign was created with the black neighborhood or black criminal on it, supposedly. So I just wonder if they had that same conversation with the trash cans and with the neighborhood watch sign. But I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure they're like, yes, that's the criminal. Yes, let's keep the sign.
Yeah, it definitely would have been interesting if they would have said, like where Kahari Nahara goes on to say, why was the color of the trash container such an issue? Would it have made a difference if the trash containers were white, silver, or yellow? I mean, would those white females have said stuff like those big, white, ugly things? I mean, I doubt it. And he goes on to talk about how it almost in a white psyche, it was as if they likened those big black containers to big black males that were lurking in some sort of way, because they have this sort of preoccupation with black males lurking around wanting to rape white females and stuff. That's always in the white psyche, white male psyche and white female psyche, that and really we all know that white people are the biggest rapers. We got nothing on them when it comes to sexual abuse, rape, just crime in general. So yeah, that's definitely telling.
Yeah, thank you, Smoky Damages, for pointing out the how suspected racist or white supremacists, the Yurugu, has definitely taken everything that is dark, that is constructive, and just retarded it and made it into something abhorrent, and that's something that we should not enjoy. Like even dirt, soil. I'm always watching. Now, but when I'm decoding entertainment, I'm always hearing like dirt bag, or I gotta get some dirt on him. We got some dirt on you. I'm like, dirt is very foundational to existence of all things that exist. But the racist man, racist woman, the Yurugu, which is against nature, I suspect, against the natural laws of the universe, they don't give a damn that dirt is useful. They'll flip it, turn it around. The racist language, the racist mind is very, very interesting. And I'm going to continue reading from two.
Can I add
go ahead,
quick?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add, as you guys were speaking, I think for the white people who were overly concerned with the black trash cans, maybe to them it was like the black people moving into the neighborhood. They would go outside and see all these black entities, items in and around their streets. So maybe it's the same thing as Black people moving into the neighborhood. Oh, there goes the neighborhood, you know. So I think that is probably where that could also be stemming from. Something I thought of.
Definitely could be. So on page 239, it states, that is how a racist mindset associates the color of a thing or object with a race of people. Those big black ugly things were big phallic shaped black men waiting in the alley to commit crimes against white people and rape white females. Let's explore this a little deeper. Is it an accident that so many large trash containers are black phallus shaped objects? Look around and observe the trash containers that are black or dark brown in color, from office trash containers to the large trash receptacles in backyards. A large percentage of trash containers today are dark colored, either black or dark brown. This is not to discount some of the more feminine looking trash containers in some cities. The trash containers are metal or silver colored. Well, metal and silver colored. Still, in the present day, the majority of trash containers are black or very dark brown. Why are trash containers dark or brown? Why are trash containers dark or black in color? Have the words trash and black become synonymous terms? In his revealing book, Dictionary of Symbolism, Hans Biderman says that black in Europe is a color with negative associations. He cites a phrase such as a black man, a house in shadows, a dark snake as examples. Words and symbolic meanings are carried over from one generation to the next despite physical geographical differences. And this reminds me of wow, Race and Women have done a phenomenal job with their brain trashing, commonly known as brainwashing, but just brain trashing the minds of all people, white and non-white. Because I used to when I was more confused, I used to, jokingly, my circle of confused victims, we used to call each other trash, jokingly, you're trash, or a little did we know, that, this was by design, us to be so silly and so stupid with each other, calling each other trash for fun, garbage for fun. Well, maybe that's because somewhere in our brain computer, we knew that this system was trashing our mind and trashing our existence. Any comments, notes to share?
Looking at let me see, this is an old Oxford dictionary that I've got here, 1963, I think it is. And it says, opposite to white, colorless, from the absence of complete absorption of all light. So near, this is to have no distinguishable color, very dark colored. And then it goes into in the face, purple with strangulation or passion, right? As if you're being strangled in terms of that. But they're obviously talking about it from a white perspective, going purple if you're strangled. Dark skinned, dark clothes, of sky, deep water, etc. Dusky, gloomy. And then it goes on to describe characteristics of black. It says deadly, sinister, wicked, hateful, hateful-hearted, black-hearted, crimes of the blackest crimes. They've got blackest crime, which is the worst crime that you can commit. Angry, sulky, threatening, dark-browed, implying, looking dark or looking black is implying disgrace or condemnation. Basically, it just goes on, just loads and loads and loads and loads of negative things associated with black as a color. And then obviously, if you call yourself a black person, or they call us, we're classified as black by the white supremacists. So in the psyche, you can't really the disassociation is obviously going to be very, very hard to do on the psyche of non-white people and white people, I would suspect. And conversely, obviously, you have the opposite description for white. You have innocent, unstained, of harmless kind, light, colorless, ordinary daylight, white man, member of one of the paler races, chiefly inhabiting or having inhabited Europe, and characterized by a certain type of civilization, person of honorable character, good breeding, etc., etc. So I just think it's terrible. They project all this kind of stuff. It's like I was saying, like from the opposite, they try and sort of portray us as dark, ugly, like horrible, dark, beastly type things, and then obviously for themselves, they describe themselves in, you know, the most innocent, you know, virtuous type of people imaginable. And in terms of symbolism, like we were saying last time, like when we were talking about white supremacy in entertainment, when you have like a white Superman, that's a symbol of reassurance. Again, it's a symbol of reassurance that if you have a very, very powerful white person who could stop racism, white supremacy, they will never, ever lift a finger to do so, right? And that's exactly what happens today. White people could stop racism if they wanted to, and they choose not to. So it's definitely a projection, you know, of the word black and everything that symbolizes black as being very negative. It's definitely a projection by the white supremacists.
Hearing that just reiterates and communicates to me that, wow, white people have set their racist ideology in stone, put it in books. It's literally set in stone what they think of us, you know, what they want and what they view us as being here for, which is to be mistreated in their system, to be subjects and servants to their system. This is why they think we're here. So I think this motivates me to want to and work to and help to solve the race problem. And geez, if it doesn't do that to you and you are a white person or a non-white person, maybe think about that. Maybe think about why not. You know, should you be on a planet? Should you even exist if you didn't want to eliminate this atrocious problem where we're attempting to counter at this very moment? If you didn't want to eliminate that problem, should you exist? Then maybe that's a question to ponder. So continuing with the text, I just want to share this with the audience, with folks who will find this broadcast, because this is also very, very, very constructive, and it goes hand in hand with what Smoking Diamond just covered with what white people were saying. So this is from 240. In the white supremacist world, the word black is generally synonymous with trash, dirt, and filth. While this is not true in all situations, in general, it is true enough to conclude that it is not random or accidental. What is the real message? The message is that whatever comes out of a black penis is trash. I would add here, whatever comes out of black people or black people in general are just trash. This is what this is saying. But continuing, the historical treatment of black people gives birth to this conclusion. White racists have treated black people like trash and disposable items for almost 400 years. I would say much, much, much longer than this. From South Africa to South America, blacks have been and remain on the bottom, classified as useless eaters, etc. The historical record is replete with evidence of maltreatment and mistreatment. The most glaring and enduring example is, of course, the slave trade. Chattel slavery, by some estimates, killed between 35 and 100 million black people during the Middle Passage. This is a testament and proof positive of the suffering of beings who originated from black genetic stock It indicates that the Black individual is considered garbage, and there is plenty of history to validate this statement. The trash receptacles are a constant reminder that Black people are symbols of trash. So I think this passage here has a lot of validity to it, has a lot of logic. You know, if non-white people really gave a serious look at how we have been treated for this past 2,000 years plus, they would discover that it's quite abhorrent and it's quite just miserable. It's just to be treated in a way and to discover how we've been treated and experimented on and terrorized and sodomized and victimized. It's just incorrect, and then it should motivate us to solve the problem, and it should be a clear example that yeah, we are trash. Because you know, you're walking down the street sometimes, you may see a can, you know, you may see a piece of trash, kick it around. You know, you could do that to trash, and that's the mentality towards Black people. If it's a Black person, you can kick it around. You know, you can rep it up. What they're here for, or at least that's the messages I receive from this system 24/7. And
yeah, very I agree. From what I've seen, a number of victims of racism, racially showcased or not, intentionally try to avoid talking about racism. You know, it's like in the video you showed, US Justice Department historically mistreated, maltreated Black people for centuries, decades, since the inception of the country. But you know, rather let's focus on the one Black female judge who I have a birthday, who I share a birthday with. No mention of slavery, no mention of Jim Crow, segregation, no mention of that history, but just the history of racial progress, so-called racial progress, racial symbolism in this country. I think it's very sad to see, and yeah, I think if victims talked about it more, I think we would actually be more inclined to do something about it. But I suspect racist man, racist woman will continue to put up these racial symbols of progress, so that victims of racism have more examples of racial progress to talk about, rather than the massive mistreatment we've experienced all over the planet by racist man and racist woman.
thank you, Mr. Kwaku. All right, so before we get into the next section, I have some more content to share with the panel. So let's get that up here. Wait, we're not done yet. There's one more piece to the puzzle.
What was this about my flag? You got me all wrong. I've taken care of many boys like you over the years. I don't have a problem with Negroes.
Okay, fuck this.
You watch your mouth, boy.
You watch yours.
Where are you going?
Let the cops deal with it. I don't have time for this.
Alrighty, so the two pieces of content we just heard are involving the flag, the red, white, and blue.
That was really funny.
Yeah, folks like to get us started with this section.
You know, I have to say, every time I hear that, like, we pledge allegiance to a flag, it's so strange. I mean, what they really mean is we pledge allegiance to an ideology that the flag represents. It's not even really pledging allegiance to a flag. It's actually, you know, not as in a piece of material. It's pledging allegiance to the ideology of racism, white supremacy. And I'll tell you what I didn't even realize, or I either realized subconsciously but didn't really register it, on page 246. Kari Henry has just gone to the trouble of listing just different so-called countries that have red, white, and blue flags. The United States, red, white, and blue. Great Britain, red, white, and blue. Australia, red, white, and blue. France, red, white, and blue. Netherlands, Yugoslavia, Paraguay, Russia, Czech Republic, Norway, New Zealand, Croatia, Scotland, Luxembourg, Iceland, Slovenia, Canada. And I mean, when you think about it, yeah, just everywhere you go, every time you see those symbols, every time you see those colors, all you see is just bloodshed, rape, torture, pillage, etc. Just white supremacist domination, white supremacist world domination. Very interesting indeed. And like I say, anytime I've been a victim of racism, white supremacy, I've never been a victim of that from, you know, racist man and racist woman. They've never had a flag in their hands whilst they victimize me. So really, it's an ideology, and the flag is separate but not separate. I understand the flag is a symbol, but you know, pledging an allegiance to a flag is just a very, very strange one. Neely Fuller Jr. has an interesting compensatory coded, an attempted compensatory counter-racist flag pledge, which I encourage, which I'm not going to say now. I'm just going to encourage other non-white people to go and find out what that is, because I think it's very, very constructive indeed.
Thank you. Yeah, this is these flags, everything that I'm just gonna read. I'm just gonna read from the text, because what was decoded with these flags and the Pledge of Allegiance and all of it being connected, and all of it being just racist propaganda, and also racist indoctrination. But this is from page 241. The rallying cry is against the darkest evil. The threat is called the darkest day in history, dark threats of violence, dark terror, or the dark side. All of these racial or color references reawaken the fear of the dark menace within the white collective. The use of racial and color symbolism have even motivated and reconnected many of those young Generation X white people who had declared separation from the concept of the white supremacism. Thousands, maybe millions of Generation X young white adults have purchased new lethal weapons and gas masks and are advocating war or signing up to fight. This is because they do not understand the power. This is because they do not understand the power of the implanted color symbols, such as red, white, and blue. Embeds are mental, emotional, and spiritually implanted concepts. When required, signals can be sent about impending danger or annihilation from dark-skinned or Black populations. The implanted embeds uses racial and color symbolism to connect darkness and Blackness with danger and evil. The embedding process is so effective that many people do not consciously recognize the power until triggered by an accident or situation. There are hundreds of fiction and nonfiction movies made by white producers and books written by white authors, warning of impending attacks against white people by the coded dark menace. These warnings signal the white mindset to get ready for coming battles. This kind of evil color imaging begins at birth and continues until death. The tragic incident of September 11, 2001 formalized the fight against the dark menace. So these flags, and whenever white people have to so-called declare a war, this time they're warring, my bad, this time they're battling amongst themselves. Whenever they have to declare a new battle, they will use languages that we heard in the beginning, the darkest day in history, you know, fighting the dark threats, you know, the dark tides, stuff like this I hear all the time. And they're always churning out propagandas and in form of video games and movies, you know, about where the title has dark something in it. But this is very common. But it wasn't until I read this section where I really noticed that even after I read the ISIS papers, I kind of went past my mind that all of these flags are some sort of combination of red, white, and blue. And then back to what Smokey Damager says, wherever you see these flags, it is reflective of ideology and of course the system of white supremacy, because the Yurugu is very is an abstract creature. You know, it likes to, you know, just be very abstract. It can produce these ideas and attach it to anything. Most times it likes to attach it to something phallic-like. The flag itself is a phallic symbol, if you really want to pay attention to the pole that it is often attached to. So the Yurugu is their masters of just producing ideology and symbols and attaching it to stuff. You know, the monkey, from my understanding, is an animal, but the Yurugu has attached that animal to non-white people classified as Black, which is why we had a Twitter space recently where a white person was saying, hey, this Black person chimping out, which is why they have a website called Chimping Out or Chimp Out. So it's just really interesting how, you know, the system of white supremacy is just in your face 24/7. It's just our duty to develop the ability to decode it and understand it. And I hope what I'm saying is making sense. I hope I'm just rambling on here.
Makes perfect sense. And then on 244, relating to exactly to the flag and the stars that are on the flag, really interesting. Kari and Hara, what he says about the stars on the flag as well. He says white people in America are the long-standing cousins, brothers, sisters, nieces, and nephews of white people in the British Empire. The series of battles between the British and Americans was misnamed the Revolutionary War. It was in reality a prolonged, violent family feud that somehow involved their cousins over how to divide up the new spoils of the quote-unquote Western world. Washington's defense to the stars, Washington's reference to the stars from heaven implies that the colonies, later renamed states, were intended for white people as white settlers. The stars are white, symbolizing whiteness as being godlike or celestial. This also symbolizes the divinity or divine mission of white people to rule over the beasts of the earth. And that's profound the way he's put it there as well. And that basically essentially is what the flag means. That's essentially what the stars on that flag actually really mean. So when you think back to what the racially showcased person at the top of the when we first began the broadcast, when she said sacred principles under which this nation was founded, this is an example of how many white nations were founded like that. And the symbols of the star and the stars on the flag and the meanings behind that definitely should be taken into account. In terms of white, which I was reading earlier from the dictionary, it also talks about, I don't know if other non-white people listening to this have heard of the phrase white man's burden. right? White man's burden is the task of leading the world forward, right? In terms of leading the world into what they call civilization, civilizing the non-white people, the beasts, the heathens of the earth as they see it. That's what white man's burden means. I urge other non-white people to go check out that phrase. And yeah, it's very telling yet again.
Yeah, for me, I was first reading about the flag. I learned early on that flags have certain meanings, especially the colors. For example, I learned what the concept Ghana flag means. So the red stands for the blood of the people of the land. The yellow stands for the gold that is found, the abundance of gold found there. The green stands for the agriculture, and the black is supposed to stand for the people. So I always wondered, what did red, white, and blue mean for all these other flags? And I noticed a lot that red, white, and blue is usually associated with flags in Europe. So I always wondered what that meant. And I think early on I found out, at least I thought that it meant white skin, and the blue and red meant like the color of their veins and arteries. So the blue and it was, the veins and arteries. So when Kari Naharo, talks about the flag, and I think it was on page 245, Smoking Down just talked about the white stars. He also mentioned that the red color, when decoded on 245, it says, it is clear that the color red stands for being red-blooded and belonging to the same gene pool. I thought that was interesting, because that was something he mentioned early on, like the hot-blooded American or red-blooded American. The white clearly stands for white people, which I agree with. And then the blue in the racial and color context, the blue color means blue skies. When decoded, it means that everything under the blue skies, the land, air, and sea, will be under white supremacy domination. And I feel like this is a very much more accurate definition of what those colors mean, description, rather than the one that was given earlier in the book. I don't remember what it was, but I think that definition that Kari Naharo gives is a lot more descriptive, and so much more accurate. And then also, I guess the flag also follows the theme of the book, where Black people interpret the flag as one thing compared to what white people see. So he mentions that for Black people, the red, white on page 242, he says the red, white, and blue symbolizes enslavement and degradation. These are the official colors of a slave-holding nation, population, and generation. And there's numbers of victims of racism. Even we saw the victim of racism earlier with the video that 0526 started showing that, a lot of these victims try to identify with the flag. I think it's a deliberate attempt to ignore it, or just confusion. I don't see how any Black person, any victim of racism can think otherwise, that this flag isn't associated with enslavement and degradation of Black people. I also liked how on 243, when he's taught, where it says Black people in white dominated nations believe that they are an abandoned people. They do not believe that Black people in Africa want them to live there. This is why so many claim America as their ancestral homeland. They are quick to point out how Africans do not like Black people in the United States and other areas of the world. They have been fed the same lies everywhere to divide and conquer. They have been groomed to have mental and emotional attachments to white supremacy domination. So right there, when we see Black people identifying with these flags, the red, white, and blue, I think it has something largely to do with this, because they feel that they've been abandoned by everyone else on the planet, and the only place that they can turn to is to the white supremacists, to continue to be dominated. And I see this a lot with the continuous tribalism going on recently, and I mean forever really in America with some of these groups of victims of racism. I'll go and mute my line.
Precisely. Flags are another thing that white people have given us to give us the idea that we have some sort of a belonging, we're included. Like we could represent these flags too. You know, we could wave the American flag proudly. Some of us have even decided to wave the Confederate flag proudly, hence fellow victim of racism, CRWS. But that's just because we're just confused about what these flags mean. You know, to me, if I see a flag, if I see a white person waving a flag, okay, they're just waving a flag, and the flag just represents the system of racism and white supremacy. And if I see a non-white person waving the flag, the flag just represents that they are a victim of racism and white supremacy. You know, Nigeria's flag, Ghana's flag, Japan's flag, all means the same thing to me. It means they're non-white victims of racism. White people are still in charge over there, despite they're probably not even having that many white people over there. Germany, you know, Latvia, Norway, Poland, the same thing. All these flags just mean, you know, they support in the system of racism, white supremacy. When a white person sees like flags or borders or roads, it doesn't mean anything to me. They know that this whole planet is theirs. You know, they just do just add all the dressing for us, so we can, like, you know, decorate ourselves with the flags, and it further confuses us. You know, it'll lead large amounts of us to start calling ourselves foundational Black Americans and start to represent the flag, put the flag in our bios and everything. You know, we really associate ourselves with these concepts given to us by the enemy. Not only the enemy, but a person who has labeled us as their enemy. So really, really insane. I really gotta observe that and counter and correct this behavior.
And just to add to that, when I first got to this section, you know, the first thing that popped in my head is the discussion we had about Captain America and just the symbol of that character. But also going on and talking about the Pledge of Allegiance. It's always been awkward for the Pledge of Allegiance and having to learn it and be graded on the Pledge of Allegiance. And then also now that when I'm in schools, I hear it being like basically showcased in front of everyone. They have like little trinkets and things and awards for the best class who can say it all together. And it's all interesting, but it gives me very cult vibes. And it almost makes you want to love the flag, because and then later on in the section, it talks about the emotion part of it that it has with white people, and then the emotional part of it that it has with Black people, and how they're different. But both groups, they almost like worship the flag, especially when it's, I guess, convenient, or I guess it's a hope for Black people. Like, oh, the American dream. Well, if I just love this flag, it means I love white people, and then I can move up in life. And then it goes back, and it always reminds me of the Kaepernick kneeling during, was it the Super Bowl? I can't remember, but when he knelt, and it was a big uproar, and everyone went ballistic and cut him off, whatever. And they're saying how it was disrespectful to the country. And most of the military had a lot to say about it, because they worship the flag. But it's just very interesting how the attachment people have to this flag, and thinking, even if it was a foundational thing, and thinking how white people have killed and enslaved so many people, and in the name of the flag or the country. So it's just so many parts that is like within this one symbol that holds a lot for even Black people and white people, but they still go on and love it and wear it. They wear it in their clothes. I can't remember some Black person who had like this suit on, and it's just all kinds of situations like that where people are obviously confused, but it just shows so hard how racism, white supremacy has instilled like so much into the Black community or Black victims in general, because from early on we are told that we must love this and worship this flag. This is just like the founding of everything. And then one more thing with the Confederate flag and seeing how the different meanings of what the Confederate flag means, I was like, wow, I never really thought about it, because I just know that it's a symbol to put in Black people's faces, like, oh, look at this, you know, and people wear it all the time. People have it all the time. And people always think about the KKK, but it's like random people have it. Like just normal white people have it in their houses. They look at it every day before they leave to go to work. You know, and then you want them to respect you, or whatever respect means, but you want them to see you as, I'm gonna put quotes, human and not an animal, but they just like worship this flag that says, I hate Black people, and they come out and you want them to serve you, which is very odd, but I guess it gives people that hopeful sense, you know. In the beginning, we talked about the first Black this, first Black that. I'm gonna use quotes again and say progress. We're making it somewhere. So the flag, I guess, doesn't mean anything, but and deep down, we know it's still kill Black.
Yeah, I see a number of victims of racism, especially on YouTube, strongly identified with the American flag, so-called American values. It's really surprising that even though, you know, Dr. Francis Chris Wellison, I guess it's not surprising, but Dr. Francis Chris Wellison talked about how, and like the Jews thought that they were German, but really you're still considered non-white, and Black people still don't understand that even though if they identify as American, you're still considered non-white. So to be American means to be white. And you know, with the Confederate flag, I thought that at the bottom where he says the Confederate flag is a symbol that is as devastating as the Nazi flag. Yet the Confederate flag is sold in many stores in the United States without any protest, political sanctions, or economic repercussions. And I know that we know that the U.S. can put up, you know, going off of what is going on in the world with Ukraine and Russia, we know that the U.S. can get those sanctions out overnight, in the blink of an eye. You know, they started imposing all these sanctions on Russia for, you know, they're not doing business with Russia, they're not trading with Russia and its allies, so what, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, they can't even put a sanction on like these southern states that continue to produce this flag. I mean, if one thing could be done for Black people, I think that putting a ban on that seems like something that could be easy, putting a sanction on it. But I think it just goes to show that racist man, racist woman absolutely have no desire to do anything to repair the damage that has been done to Black people, to non-white people over the last 3-4 centuries in this country or across the globe. And I think that should be a constant reminder. There's Black people who even identify with the Confederate flag, saying it's so-called Southern pride. I don't know what Black person has to be prideful in the South. What, you know, I think that is probably one of the worst places with the worst history for Black people. So that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Kwaku. All that's been said is all very, very telling. And I'm gonna play this clip again because it's really easy to miss it. The clip I played earlier from 2022 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm gonna play it again. because it's in regards to the Confederate flag, and it's really triple T, tacky, trashy, and terroristic, which is what this which is basically what all flags should represent and how we should relate to these flags, but especially this so-called Confederate flag and this so-called American flag. So I'm gonna listen to it because I can't play it because white people don't allow me to show you guys it, but we can listen to it.
What was this about my flag? You got me all wrong. I've taken care of many boys like you over the years. I don't have a problem with Negroes.
Okay, fuck this.
You watch your mouth, boy.
You watch yours.
Where are you going?
Let the cops deal with it. I don't have time for this.
Alrighty, so what's taking place is that this suspected racist has a Confederate flag hanging from her building, and a black male doesn't like it, and he tries to remove it, and then racism and white supremacy, of course, ensues. The conversation goes from tacky. She's very she's like, her voice is very calm. She's very somewhat cordial, and then as the system is designed, the conversation goes from tacky to trashy, with the black male being confused and not understanding that he should not even react to the flag in that manner. And then it goes from trashy to terroristic with of course the conflict that the film is all about. Anywho, I started with very, very interesting, and how just in cinema they even show how we relate to the flag incorrectly. We should not see a flag, and we should just understand that white people are still in charge, and I'm on occupied territory, occupied by a racist man, a racist woman, a racist child, and I need to get my combat boots on and figure out how I am going to maintain and end this war that I was born into. Saying that you're FBA or ADOS or anything but a victim of racism, prisoner of war, born in a prison system, that's how we're going to limit the problem with the truth. But if we're like ADOS or FBA, or we're just still running away from our actual position as being prisoners of war, then we're going to remain in a system. We're going to remain subjected to the terrorization, the mistreatment that occurs because we are simply non-white. Because remember, the system is just being mistreated on the basis of color. That's going to continue. We're going to keep having to watch films called Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where we see black males get chopped in the face and acting like buffoons. So motivation to end the race problem.
I have a question. Was that black male in a tragic arrangement? I heard somebody ask him, where is he going?
You bet. It was, you bet he was. You bet he was, and you bet the movie coded that really, really interestingly. Yes.
See, just another great example of why nobody should be in a tragic arrangement. Victims of racism. You have that flag means absolutely nothing to that white woman. To that victim of racism, it means everything. And she's asking, what's wrong? Where are you going? You need to stay here and help this white woman. I haven't seen the movie, but that's what I interpreted that as. Zero problem with it.
Yeah, precisely. I think I have concluded my notes. I truly hope that we have done a constructive job at showcasing just these racial symbols, and hopefully motivating non-white people to refine their usage of thought and speech, so we are able to refine our action, because we must improve and change what is not working. I don't think it has not worked pretending that we're Americans. It has not worked pretending that we're Ghanaians or Nigerians or anything European. You know, we unfortunately, and according to the evidence, we were born into a system of white supremacy, which means we were born into a war against us. And it is our duty to end the war or die attempting to do so. Only two options we have. Anything else is a waste of time and worth less than what we should be doing. And yeah, that's my closing comment, and I'll meet my line. We are closing off today with some content. So after everyone shares their closing comments, we can close out with the final piece of content I have for us.
And just to close out, I think, as I say probably every week, is continue to analyze some of the things that have been pointed out, and then seeing how frequently these symbols are used and in what context. And then also, I lost my thought, but yeah, I'll just end there. And also see the specifically red, white, and blue flags and see if I see them and where and in what order do I see them in and all that good stuff. So thank you for the discussion.
I'll just say, I wish that these broadcasts were not necessary. Yeah, I think that's really my closing comments, that I wish these broadcasts were not necessary. Unfortunately, they are, solution to racism, white supremacy is to make sure that everything you do is constructive. So everything you do is either going to be constructive or non-constructive. It's really as simple as that. There's no nuance there. It's either going to be constructive or non-constructive. You fight against racism, white supremacy in everything, in your economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anything that you're doing that doesn't have a constructive effect on the way that you think, speak, and act, you should just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. That's my closing comments.
For my closing comment, I did have one or two more notes, but I'll just sum them up very quickly, briefly in my closing comment. So following the Confederate flag, as we know, it's still being allowed to be manufactured, produced, sold all over the country. And I think this really shows us that how the white supremacist thinks. White people are not ignorant about racism. They know that Black people have lost the war, yet they continue to wave that flag in our face to degrade us even more. It's the racial conquering mentality dictates that non-white victims, once destroyed or subdued, must be degraded and made a laughingstock or used for money making and entertainment purposes. If you don't believe me, think about all of the sports teams that have the so-called Native Americans on it, the Washington Redskins, Chicago Blackhawks, Atlanta Braves, St. John's Redmen. These, as we know in American history, the history of so-called America, that these people were hated, despised, killed, brutalized. A complete genocide, to where there are, I don't even know, maybe a million or less left of them, yet they are made mascots. Very interesting. And lastly, with the Confederate flag, because there's just too much. This white people waving this flag reveals too much. On 249, it says the Confederate flag triggers all the antebellum racial ideas and concepts. It keeps the concept of slavery alive in the minds of Black and white people, and in most cases, without many of them understanding the full ramifications. I don't really agree with the full ramifications. I think white people are completely aware of what they are doing. I think Black people are confused. But the mindset of the hardcore white supremacist is very informative. Rather than give up the brutal, barbaric, and genocidal system of slavery, the Southerners went to war. They lost thousands of their youth and kin to maintain the most horrible system of dehumanization and injustice the world has ever known. They despise and disregard Black people so much that they would rather fight, kill, and be killed by their white brethren than change an outdated, inhumane system. This is deep. Yet they have the nerve to wave this flag symbol of raw, naked, horrible racism in the face of Black people. So, you know, some a confused victim might say, "Oh, those are the uneducated, illiterate, retarded white people down there in the South. You know, they're few and far in between. That's the old white people. But I mean, if the U.S. government, Uncle Joe, hasn't done anything about the Confederate flag, if no U.S. president has done anything about the Confederate flag and make sure like banning it, putting sanctions, I think it's safe to say that they agree with it. They don't care about it. They don't mind it. In fact, they allow it to be continued to be produced. So just keep in mind that these are the white people that you follow, that you listen to, that you get your advice from, and that you think have the best interests of Black people in it. The people who put these racial symbols of racial progress in front of us. So that is what the Confederate flag means to Black people. It is a raw, naked symbol of horrible racism for Black people. And it is a legacy of slavery that, in my opinion, still lives on in this country and across the globe. That's my closing comment. Looking for a constructive business meeting. Looking forward to the next meeting.
Why haven't you learned anything?
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Cookie, for those for those notes. Just so in your face, and that's why I played the sound clip, because why haven't we just noticed and countered and adapted with this information? I have no clue, but what you said just makes me want to reiterate and just remind folks of the comparison Kyrie and Harold makes to the Confederate flags being in the Nazi flags. Remember, the Nazis went around killing non-white people who were classified as Black and who were classified as Jewish, or they were calling them Semitic at the time. But they went around killing them, waving this flag, you know, wearing this flag on their uniform, killing these people. Nowhere in Germany is that so-called Germany is that flag allowed to be propped up anywhere. Nowhere in Europe, unless without people getting upset. But here on this planet, well, but in other places on the planet, you can wave around that Confederate flag. Even though white people did the same thing, went around waving that flag, burning up Black people, lynching Black people, you know, just terrorizing Black people with that flag in hand. But yet they're still allowed to do so. And it's because we are in a system of white supremacy, and you are seeing this, you are exposed to this because it is supposed to motivate you to do something about it, do something constructive about it. Go ahead.
I'd also urge non-white people to think about if the white supremacists did so-called ban the Confederate flag, would that end the system of racism, white supremacy? Or is it the ideology that the so-called flag stands for? Or do they stand for that ideology? I think a flag flag's a symbol, and it's a how can I say, an in-your-face reminder. But even if they did, I suspect that would have the effect of sending a message to a lot of non-white people that the system of racism, white supremacy was somehow weakened, and that would be a grave underestimation of how powerful the system of racism, white supremacy is. Yeah.
Thank you for the fellow hosts, and thank you for the audience and to the audience. You know, if this work was constructive, please give it a like and share. And if white people have allowed you with some extra crumbs, please consider going to our Patreon page, CRWS. It's patreon.com/CRWS book club. Please, again, like, share, and comment on this and feed the algorithm so more non-white people can access this information. With that being said, I'm going to play the final piece of content. You guys will have to listen because I can't show the visuals. So just listen. And I will see you all for our next broadcast, which may be very, very soon or next Sunday.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you very, very much for letting us little kids live here. It really, really was nice of you. You didn't have to do it. And it's really not creepy to have little kids mindlessly recite this anthem every day and pledge their life to a government before they're old enough to really think about what they're saying. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is really the greatest country in the whole world. All the other countries suck. And if this country ever goes to war, as it often wants to do, I promise to help go and kill all the other countries' kids. God bless Johnson & Johnson. God bless GE. God bless Citigroup. Amen.
Very good, kids. Now come and get your Ritalin.
All righty.
Wow. Wow.